Hey guys, in this tutorial I just want to look at how lesson or tutorial number 5 works, and well, let's begin. So tutorial number 5 is the first time that we're looking at two different files. So previously we were looking at a main.py file, and this time we're looking at also a global variables.py file as well. So we'll dive into how these two files work. You'll also notice that there really is not much code that you'll recognize from before anymore. And this was specifically designed to help you animate or move animated text, moving up, down, left, or right. So the current one that I've got open is moving left. And the first part I want to go over and explain is this lookup color function. So the lookup color function has what's called an if-else chain. So first, what we do is that we check if this variable called color has the value of 10. If it does, then we assign the value 000, RGB value of 000 to our NeoPixel light. Now, essentially what it does is that it simplifies the RGB value, which has 3 numbers, into a single value. So 11 represents orange, 12 represents yellow, 13 represents green, and so on. The other thing for you to also keep in mind is that, of course, you can modify or change any of these values, but you need to make sure that none of these values are repeated. So it should be 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, you don't want to have 13 and 13 here, like this. Okay, this is going to cause an error in your code because now 13 represents 3 different colors, and you're going to confuse the computer or the program about which color it really represents. Okay. Next up to note is that the first condition, the first is always an if, and everything after that is an else if. So EL stands for else if. So let's also look over at the global variables file right now. And here you'll see a connection between the lookup color function and global variables.py. So notice we've got 10 here, we've got 12 here, which represents a yellow color. So if I do a find in buffer, and I do a search for 12, you can see that it's highlighting, I guess, sort of words, hopefully you can see, is that it says move left in here. So anything you see in 12, if we look back at main.py, 12 stands for the color yellow. Okay? 10 represents the color black, or there's no color there essentially. Okay, so what we'll see on the NeoPixel board is that a single 10 is essentially 000 with the color black as defined here, okay, and 12 actually stands for 55, 55, and 0, which is yellow. Okay, so it's a more simplistic way of arranging our code and color values. So rather than looking at 3 values, we only have to look at 1 single value. Down here, I'm also doing something similar. So if I change my search to 15, this says this is blue. So I guess the code that I wrote there is 15 should stand for the color blue. So if you look at that, that is, well, I guess it's not quite blue, it's violet, but it's pretty close in color to a blue. So there's 2 messages here that have different messages, and 15 represents the color violet. Okay. The last thing we want to look at in this video is the part at the very end. So the part after while true, we have, again, an if-else chain. So if the message is 1, then we show this part. If it's 2, then we show this part. So notice here that there's 4 parameters or 4 values separated by commas. And I have a little reminder here to show you what those different values stand for. So what we're telling the computer here in the first parameter is that the next, where to go next. So once we show message number 1, what do we do next? We go to message number 2, and then we show message number 2. Okay, and then message 2, you can see, actually goes back and it recycles itself to message number 1. The next parameter we look at is how many frames, is probably the best way to describe it. How many frames we want the message to last for. So what it'll do is that it'll shift the entire message over one whole frame or box at a time. So this 15 will be over here, this 15 will be here. Okay, so essentially, if we start animating this, it'll do something like this will be what the next frame is. So as I delete this, you can see that the entire message is being shifted over by one. Okay, and it'll repeatedly do this, not manually like I'm showing you, but it'll do that on the NeoPixel board. It'll shift everything over one whole column at a time. And that's how it animates things. So the first one lasts for 26 frames or 26 animations, and the second one lasts for 30. The next one should already be quite obvious, is that it's referencing the global variables file, and it's referencing message number 1. So we want to show message number 1 moving left first, okay, and then likewise in the second one we're showing message number 2 also moving left. The last one isn't really of too much concern. I would generally just leave that as 0. It states the starting point of the message, but most of the time, if we're moving things left, we always start with the very first one right here. Okay, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Right, that concludes this tutorial. We'll see you guys next time in our upcoming tutorials.